The forest was quiet, save for the faint rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. Haku's breath hitched as he staggered, the wound on his side still fresh. But before the blood could flow freely, he raised a hand, his fingers weaving a swift motion. Instantly, a thin layer of ice formed over the wound, sealing it and stopping the bleeding. The chill in the air seemed to grow, surrounding him like a protective barrier. Heiku straightened, his eyes meeting Naruto's, still calm despite the pain. "You're quick, Naruto," he said softly, his voice steady, "and ruthless. In some ways, you remind me of Zabuza. But you're also very different. He fights for his ambition, but you fight for yourself, don't you?" Naruto remained still, his expression unreadable. "What's your point?" Haku's lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile. "This world is full of people who live by different philosophies. Zabuza-san taught me to be strong, to survive, but he also gave me a purpose. It was the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere. And now, I see you, someone who seeks strength not to protect, but to be free." He paused, eyes softening as if reflecting on something distant. "You're similar to him, yet you're chasing a freedom he doesn't care about." Naruto's gaze remained cold, but he listened, letting Haku's words drift through the silence. "So what?" he said bluntly. "Everyone has their reasons. You've got yours, I've got mine. Doesn't mean anything." Heiku's expression didn't falter, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "You're right, everyone has their reasons. But it's rare to find someone so dedicated to being alone. Don't you ever think there might be more to strength than just power for yourself?" Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly. "No." The answer was simple, direct, and final. Haku waited, as if expecting more, but Naruto said nothing else. He didn't see the need to explain himself. Power, to him, was the only path that mattered. Everything else was just noise. Heiku sighed softly, his breath misting in the cool air. "You remind me of a mirror, reflecting back whatever the world throws at you, but never showing what's inside. Maybe that's why you seek strength to protect what's behind that reflection." Naruto's gaze darkened slightly, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. "I don't need to explain myself to you," he said, his tone growing colder. "In the end, it doesn't matter what you think." Haku's smile faded, but there was no anger in his eyes. "Perhaps not, but I wish you could see that there's more to strength than just fighting alone. It's not weakness to rely on others, to protect someone other than yourself." Naruto's eyes sharpened, a cold resolve settling in. "I don't care. I'm not like you." He took a step closer, his movements smooth and deliberate. "I don't need a reason to do what I do. All that matters is getting stronger, and I won't let anyone stand in the way of that. If you're my enemy, I'll kill you." The blunt declaration hung in the air, heavy and final. Haku looked at Naruto, studying him with an expression that was almost wistful. "Even if it means fighting against everything else?" he asked quietly. "Even if it means you're left alone?" Naruto's lips tightened slightly, but he didn't hesitate. "If that's what it takes." Haku's eyes lingered on Naruto for a moment longer, a shadow of sadness passing through them. "Then I pity you, Naruto," he said softly, "for a life spent chasing strength without knowing what it truly means." Naruto's expression remained cold, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I don't need your pity. If you stand in my way, I'll cut you down." Haku nodded, the sadness giving way to a resigned calm. "I see. Then, there's nothing more to say." Naruto's fingers twitched, wind chakra already forming around them, cutting through the mist that was beginning to cloud the air. "Fine by me." Naruto took a step forward, his movements deliberate, his wind chakra coiling around him, flickering like an unseen blade ready to strike. He could feel the cold mist lingering around them, mingling with the chill of Haku's ice. His senses sharpened, every instinct telling him to be ready for the fight ahead. Haku's hands slowly lowered to his sides, his breath steady. Despite the intensity of Naruto's stance, there was no fear in his eyes, only a quiet acceptance. "If this is what you've decided, then I won't hold back," Haku said, his voice soft yet firm. "I'll fight with everything I have, for my own purpose, just as you will for yours." Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't respond. His mind was already focused on the upcoming battle, analyzing every detail, every possible move Haku could make. He could see the faint shimmer of chakra forming around Haku's hands, hinting at the techniques he was about to use. The gentle sway of the mist around them began to grow denser, closing in like a veil. The tension snapped as both Naruto and Haku burst into action, closing the distance between them in a flash. The forest, once still, erupted into a flurry of movement. Naruto flickered to the side, his speed blurring his form as he launched a sharp slice of wind toward Haku. The attack cut through the mist, a razor-thin line slicing through branches and leaves. Haku dodged gracefully, his body moving with fluid precision as he twisted around the attack. In a blink, he retaliated, hurling a volley of senbon needles at Naruto, each one aimed to immobilize rather than kill. Naruto deflected them with a quick swipe of wind chakra, the needles scattering uselessly to the ground. Their eyes locked, both assessing the other's technique. Haku's movements were swift and elegant, his strikes precise. But Naruto was relentless, his attacks direct and ruthless, aiming to overpower rather than finesse. The clash of their ideologies was reflected in every blow. "You're fast," Haku said, his voice calm even as he dodged another slicing wind attack. "But there's something hollow in your movements. Like you're only fighting because you have to, not because you want to." Naruto didn't respond verbally. He lunged forward, closing the gap between them in an instant. His hand shot out, wind chakra forming a blade around his fingers, cutting through the air toward Haku's torso. Haku narrowly avoided the strike, stepping back as Naruto's blade sliced cleanly through a tree trunk behind him, the severed wood crashing to the ground. Haku's eyes flickered with a hint of sadness. "Strength without purpose is dangerous, Naruto. You can't just fight because you're strong." Naruto's eyes flashed. "I don't need a purpose. Strength is enough." He swung his arm, sending a gust of cutting wind toward Haku, forcing him to dodge again. "It's the only thing that matters." Haku's expression softened for just a moment, as if he saw something familiar in Naruto's words. "Maybe. That's why you remind me of Zabuza-san." He moved, gliding across the forest floor, appearing at Naruto's side with a quick jab aimed at his ribs. Naruto blocked the strike with his forearm, countering with a swift kick that forced Haku back. "I don't care who I remind you of," he said, his tone low and icy. "If you're not strong enough, then you don't belong in my way." The fight continued, each exchange faster and more intense. Naruto's wind blades slashed through the air, while Haku weaved through the attacks, countering with swift, precise strikes. Despite the speed and ferocity, there was a strange calmness in Haku's movements, as if he was observing more than fighting. But Naruto's wind manipulation gave him an edge. Every missed strike left a slice in the air. Every dodge forced Haku to move a little faster. Slowly, the advantage was shifting in Naruto's favor. He could see it in the slight hesitation in Haku's movements, in the small breaks in his composure. Haku's breathing was heavier now, his chest rising and falling with each breath. "You're strong, Naruto," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "Stronger than I expected, but this isn't everything I have." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Then stop holding back." Haku's expression hardened, and for a brief moment, the air around him seemed to freeze. "Very well." He raised his hands, forming a series of rapid hand seals, and the temperature of the forest dropped sharply. "Secret technique, crystal ice mirrors." Naruto's eyes darted between the mirrors, trying to pinpoint Haku's true location, but every image reflected back at him, taunting him. Before he could react, needles of ice shot out from the mirrors, fast and precise. Naruto flickered, dodging the first few, but more followed, striking him from impossible angles. He twisted, trying to evade the onslaught, but the senbon kept coming, cutting through his clothes and grazing his skin. He managed to deflect a few with his wind chakra, but the relentless barrage continued, pushing him back, pinning him down. Naruto's breathing grew heavier, his muscles burning from the effort of trying to keep up. The needles kept coming, each one precise, each one draining more of his strength. He could feel the cold creeping into his limbs, numbing his movements, slowing him down. "Damn it," he thought, trying to force his body to move faster, to break free. But every time he flickered, the senbon met him, cutting him off, driving him back into the center of the trap. Haku's voice echoed around him, calm and distant. "You're strong, Naruto. But in this technique, your strength won't help you." Naruto gritted his teeth, trying to find a way out. But the mirrors reflected every movement, and the Senbon kept coming, faster, sharper, pinning him down from all sides. The cold seeped deeper into his skin, the mist thickening, and for the first time, he felt his control slipping. The realization hit him like a weight, a cold, creeping dread that settled in his chest. He tried to push it away, to summon more chakra, but his body was failing him, the Senbon draining his strength, his vision blurring from the pain. The mirrors glowed around him, Haku's reflections staring down at him from every angle, their eyes calm and steady. The mist swirled, the air thick with tension, and Naruto felt a chill run down his spine, colder than the ice that surrounded him. "Am I really trapped?" he thought, the question lingering in his mind, heavy and unbidden. He struggled to keep his focus, to find a way out, but the Senbon kept coming, and the mirrors closed in around him, sealing him in a frozen, silent cage. Naruto's body felt heavy, his limbs sluggish and unresponsive. Every breath he took was sharp and painful, each one a reminder of the needles that had pierced his skin. The cold seeped deeper, numbing his senses, blurring his vision. For the first time, the thought crept into his mind, a thought he never allowed himself to consider. "I might die here." The realization hit him like a weight, sinking deep into his chest. The mirrors surrounded him, reflecting his own image back at him, fractured and distorted. Each reflection showed him something different: his tired eyes, his bleeding wounds, his failing strength. He had always been so sure of himself, so certain that power was all that mattered. But now, trapped and alone, he felt that certainty slip away. "What's the point of all this?" he thought, his mind drifting as the pain blurred his focus. "Power, strength, freedom. Does any of it matter if I die here? Does anyone's philosophy matter when they're gone?" His breath hitched, a cold fear settling in his chest. He had said he wanted power for himself, that he didn't need anyone, that strength was the only thing that could set him free. But now, facing the reality of death, he felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ice around him. "Is this what it means to be alone?" he thought, the words echoing in his mind. "If I die here, no one will know, no one will care. I'll just disappear, and everything I've done, everything I've tried to be, it'll all mean nothing." The thought terrified him. He had always been alone, but he had never truly felt it until now, when there was no one to see him, no one to hear him, no one to fight with him. He had always told himself he didn't need anyone, that he could rely on his own strength. But now, at the edge of death, he felt the emptiness of those words. "If I'm so strong, why am I afraid?" he wondered, his thoughts spiraling. "Why am I scared of dying here, by myself?" He could feel his heart pounding, each beat a reminder of how fragile he was, how close he was to losing everything. The fear twisted inside him, dark and suffocating, making it hard to breathe. He didn't understand it. Why was he feeling this way? Why did the thought of being alone, truly alone, scare him more than anything? "What's the point of power if I'm just going to die like this?" he thought, his mind swirling with confusion. "What's the point of fighting if this is how it ends?" The cold crept into his bones, numbing his body, but his mind was racing, frantically searching for an answer, something to hold on to. He thought of Haku's words, of philosophies and reasons and strength, but it all felt meaningless now, tangled and contradictory. What did any of it matter if he was about to disappear? And then, slowly, a different feeling began to build inside him, a flicker of heat, burning away at the cold that had settled in his chest. It was faint at first, just a spark of something raw and bitter, but it grew, feeding off his fear and confusion, twisting into something sharper, something darker. "Why?" he thought, his teeth gritting as the heat spread. "Why do I have to be the one to die? Why do I have to be the one who's scared and alone? I've fought, I've trained, I've pushed myself. So why am I still not strong enough?" The thought ignited something deep within him, a slow, simmering rage that bubbled beneath the surface. He was angry, angry at himself, at the world, at everything that had led him to this point. He had wanted to be strong so he wouldn't have to feel this way, so he wouldn't have to be afraid. But now, all that strength felt hollow, slipping through his fingers like sand. "This isn't fair," he thought, the anger growing, searing through the fear. I won't die here. I won't disappear. His breath came faster, harsher, as the rage built, pushing back against the cold, numbing fear. He could feel it rising, a raw, primal force that demanded to be released. The mirrors around him, the needles that had pinned him down, they all blurred together as the heat intensified, boiling up from deep within his core. I'm not going to die, he thought, his vision reddening at the edges. I won't let myself be weak. I won't let myself be scared. I'll tear through anything, anyone, to get out of this. The rage grew, feeding on itself, consuming everything else. It was wild, untamed, but it gave him strength, a strength he hadn't felt before, something deeper and more powerful than he had ever reached for. His hands clenched into fists, his nails digging into his palms, and he felt a strange, warm energy pulsing beneath his skin, bubbling up, threatening to spill over. I'll break this, he thought, his breath ragged, his eyes burning. I'll break everything if I have to. Then suddenly he felt it, a surge of power, hot and violent, radiating out from deep within his chest. His vision blurred, and for a moment he thought he could see something, a flash of red, bubbling and twisting, pushing against the boundaries of his control. The mirrors around him shivered, the ice cracking slightly, and Naruto's breathing grew heavier, the rage boiling over. A deep red chakra began to seep out from his skin, bubbling like molten lava, flickering around him in a dark, angry aura. The fear, the doubt, the confusion, it was all burning away, consumed by the rising heat of his fury. The red chakra swirled around him, pulsing with a life of its own, growing thicker, more intense. Naruto's eyes darkened, the rage twisting into something sharper, more primal, and he could feel the power surging, pushing against his control, demanding to be unleashed. I won't die here, he thought, his mind narrowing to a single burning point. I won't let anyone make me weak. The red chakra pulsed around Naruto, bubbling and twisting, its warmth radiating out in wild, unpredictable waves. His eyes burned with a deep, fierce intensity as the rage within him coiled tighter, pushing against the limits of his control. The power wasn't just a feeling, it was a force, a presence that demanded to be acknowledged, to be unleashed. As the chakra flared, the Winjutsu Naruto had been maintaining began to change. What was once a precise, controlled technique transformed into something wild and erratic. Blades of wind slashed out in random directions, slicing through Haku's mirrors and cutting deep into the trees around them. The air crackled with energy, the violent gusts tearing at everything in their path, creating a chaotic storm of razor-sharp wind. Haku's eyes widened behind his mask as he felt the shift in Naruto's aura, the chakra exuding a raw, seething malice that hadn't been there before. The once controlled wind blades now lashed out unpredictably, forcing Haku to dodge not just the attacks directed at him, but also the ones spiraling off course, creating a deadly storm. One of the errant blades grazed his arm, cutting through his sleeve and drawing blood. This isn't normal, Haku thought, his heartbeat quickening. He could feel it, the intense, almost suffocating pressure of Naruto's chakra, and beneath it, a dark, simmering hatred. It wasn't just strength, it was something far more dangerous, something feral and untamed. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, to get away from this unstable, malevolent force. Another wild slash of wind tore through the space between them, missing Haku by inches, but shattering one of his mirrors into shards of ice. Haku took a step back, his usually calm demeanor shaken as he tried to read Naruto's movements. But there was no pattern, no logic, just chaotic, furious power. "What is this?" Haku whispered, his voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. He could feel the malice radiating from Naruto, a chilling, unrestrained bloodlust that sent a shiver down his spine. This wasn't the same boy he had been fighting moments ago. Something had changed, and Haku knew that if he stayed, he would be putting himself at risk of facing a power he didn't understand. I can't fight this, he realized, his mind racing as he tried to find a way out. Not like this. Haku's instincts took over, and with a swift motion, he dissolved into the mist, retreating to the safety of the shadows. The mirrors shattered and fell, the broken shards glistening in the air as he slipped away, vanishing into the fog. Even as he moved, his mind couldn't shake the image of Naruto's eyes, dark, wild, and full of a terrifying resolve. The forest fell silent again, but the remnants of Naruto's chaotic jutsu still lingered, the torn ground and shredded trees, a testament to the power that had been unleashed. The red chakra continued to pulse around him, swirling like a dark, boiling cloud, and his breathing was ragged, each exhale marked by a faint growl. The power inside him was alive, thrumming beneath his skin, demanding to be let loose. Not far from the chaos, Asuma was sprinting through the trees, his own heart pounding in his chest. The moment he felt that dark, ominous chakra, a chill ran down his spine. He didn't need to see it to know it was Naruto, but this wasn't the chakra he was familiar with. This was something far more sinister. What the hell is going on? Asuma thought, pushing himself to move faster. He had sensed strong chakra before, but this was different, raw, oppressive, and filled with malice. Naruto, what are you doing? His legs burned as he leapt from branch to branch, straining to close the distance between himself and the source of that overwhelming power. He could see the red glow faintly in the distance, flickering like a dark flame, and he knew he had to reach Naruto before it was too late. But even as he pushed forward, he could feel the oppressive energy pushing back, making the air around him feel heavy, as if the forest itself was suffocating under the weight of Naruto's chakra. As the rage slowly ebbed away, Naruto stood in the center of the chaos, his hands trembling as the red chakra flickered around him, like embers of a dying fire. He was frozen in place, his breath ragged, eyes wide and unfocused. The raw, unrestrained power that had surged through him moments ago now felt alien, slipping away as quickly as it had come, leaving him disoriented. He could still feel it, the dark, seething presence lurking beneath the surface, like a beast that had momentarily broken free of its chains. It had answered his fury, fed on it, but now it was retreating, sinking back into the depths of his being, leaving him standing there, stuck, as if waiting for the storm to pass. Naruto's eyes darted around, taking in the devastation surrounding him. The forest, once calm and undisturbed, had been torn apart. Ravaged by the outburst of chaotic power, trees lay shattered, their trunks splintered and strewn across the ground, and deep gashes marred the earth, like scars left by a wild, thrashing beast. The air was thick, heavy with the residue of chakra, a suffocating fog that clung to everything around him. He didn't move, didn't even try to. It was as if his body was still caught in the aftermath, stuck in the tension of a moment that had already passed, yet still lingered. He could feel the power slipping away, but his heart was still pounding, his mind still hazy with the remnants of that dark, overwhelming rage. Just then, there was a rustling sound from behind, a disturbance in the dense undergrowth. Asuma finally broke through the trees, skidding to a halt as he entered the clearing. He stopped abruptly, his eyes widening as he took in the scene before him. The sight was almost surreal. What had been a serene, quiet stretch of forest was now a wasteland of destruction, like the aftermath of a violent storm. Asuma's breath caught in his throat as he scanned the area, the splintered trunks, the scorched earth, the eerie stillness. It was as if a battle had torn through the place, leaving nothing but ruin in its wake. And there, at the center of it all, stood Naruto. The boy was motionless, his head slightly bowed, hands still trembling, red chakra flickering faintly around him like dying embers. For a moment, Asuma just stared, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. Then, slowly, he took a step forward, his gaze locked on Naruto, a mix of concern and caution tightening his features. "Naruto," Asuma called out, his voice low, cutting through the thick, oppressive silence. "What happened here?" Naruto didn't respond. He couldn't. He just stood there, breathing heavily, as if still waiting for the last traces of that strange, wild chakra to disappear, for the storm within him to finally die down. Asuma approached cautiously, his own heart pounding. "Naruto," he said, his voice cutting through the thick, eerie silence that enveloped the clearing. "We need to talk." Naruto didn't respond immediately, but Asuma saw him stiffen slightly, his head tilting as he acknowledged Asuma's presence. He didn't turn around, though, just stood there, staring at the wreckage around him. There was no anger or malice in his posture now, just a strange, unsettling calm, like the quiet after a storm. They moved to a fallen log nearby, and Naruto sat down, still silent, his eyes vacant, staring off into the distance. Asuma took a seat beside him, giving him a moment to collect himself. For a long while, neither spoke, the only sound the rustling of leaves, the distant chirping of birds. Finally, Asuma broke the silence, his tone gentle but firm. "I'm sure you felt it. The power inside you," Asuma began, carefully watching Naruto's reaction. "That wasn't just your chakra, Naruto. It's something else, something you've had within you since you were born." Naruto's gaze flickered, his eyes narrowing slightly, but he remained silent. Asuma took a deep breath, his voice softening. "It's time you knew the truth. You have the nine tails sealed inside you, the demon fox that attacked Konoha all those years ago. It was sealed within you when you were just a baby. That's where that power came from, the red chakra you felt. That was the nine tails chakra." Naruto's head snapped up slightly, his eyes widening with surprise, but he still didn't say anything. The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding, as if each syllable carried a weight that was slowly sinking into his mind. He felt a strange numbness wash over him, a dull, cold sensation that made everything seem distant and surreal. Asuma continued, his voice gentle but insistent. "I know this is a lot to take in, and it's not fair that you had to find out like this. The village, the Hokage, they kept it from you to protect you. They thought it was better if you didn't know, that it would make things easier for you. But you deserve to know the truth." The mention of the Hokage sent a sharp, unexpected pang through Naruto's chest. He thought back to the old man, always smiling, always kind, and a part of him had always trusted him, even relied on him. But now it felt like that trust had been shattered, like a fragile piece of glass that had suddenly cracked, leaving only jagged edges behind. Naruto's mind reeled, trying to piece everything together. The old man had lied to him. The village had lied. Everyone around him had known, and no one had said a word. He had always thought that, no matter how alone he felt, there was at least someone who understood him, someone who cared. But now, he wasn't so sure. The realization was like a knife twisting in his gut, a cold, painful reminder of just how isolated he truly was. Asuma watched Naruto carefully, seeing the turmoil play out on his face. "I'm sorry, Naruto," he said quietly. "You weren't supposed to find out this way. But I want you to understand. You're not just the Nine Tails. You're Naruto. You're more than what's inside you, more than what people might say or think. That power, it doesn't define you." Naruto's gaze dropped to the ground, his hands clenched tightly at his sides. He wanted to say something, to argue, to shout, but the words wouldn't come. All he could feel was a deep, aching hurt, a feeling that he couldn't quite put into words. He thought he had understood what it meant to be alone, but this was different. This was worse. It felt like he had been betrayed, like the one person he thought might be on his side had been lying to him all along. In that moment, he remembered the night he had spoken to the Hokage, the night he had wanted to ask so many questions but hadn't been able to. He had held back, trusting that the old man would be honest with him, that he would give him the answers he needed. But now he realized just how wrong he had been. The old man hadn't been honest. He had hidden the truth, just like everyone else. Naruto's heart ached, the pain sharp and unrelenting, and he felt a strange, hollow emptiness settle in his chest. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to be alone. It wasn't just about not having friends, not having people around him. It was about realizing that even the people he thought he could trust, the people he thought cared, had been keeping him in the dark. It was about knowing that, at the end of the day, he really was by himself. Asuma's words echoed in his ears, but Naruto barely heard them. He was lost in his own thoughts, trying to make sense of everything, but nothing seemed to fit. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that didn't belong, like trying to find meaning in a world that didn't care. He had always told himself that power was the answer, that if he could just get strong enough, he wouldn't need anyone else. But now he wasn't so sure. "I don't care," he wanted to say. "I don't need anyone." But the words felt hollow, empty, like a lie he was telling himself just to keep from breaking apart. Asuma sighed, sensing the conflict within Naruto. "I know this is hard," he said gently, "and I know it feels like you're alone right now. But you're not. You have your team, you have people who care about you, even if it doesn't always seem like it. You don't have to face this alone." Naruto's eyes flickered, but he didn't respond. He wanted to believe Asuma, he really did, but the hurt was still there, raw and painful, and he didn't know how to make it go away. The old man had lied, the village had lied, and now, no matter how much Asuma tried to reassure him, all he could feel was that cold, creeping sense of isolation, like a shadow that he couldn't escape. As he sat there, silent and still, he realized something that made his heart ache even more. For all his talk about power, for all his determination to be strong, he had always thought, deep down, that there was someone out there who would stand by him, someone who would understand. But now he knew the truth. He really was alone, and no amount of power could change that.